iterative scheduling with a backlog. We mentioned that, okay? The other way is on-demand scheduling, which basically uses a Kanban board or a task board, where actually we don't really focus on period of time or dates or even relationships or dependencies. No, we have set of tasks that we need to do by a certain order that we need to follow. Okay, so basically what we do is we use this task board or Kanban board to represent those tasks. So what are the tasks to do? And then when the team proceed to doing those tasks, then the tasks that have started will be taken to the next stage, which is, for instance, here doing. So basically we started doing those tasks, and when done, then those tasks will be moved to the last column, which is done. Now, this is the very basic Kanban board, but of course it can be more complicated than that. And we need actually to understand the Kanban board and how it works very well, because definitely you will get some questions about the Kanban board, because it's a very actually important tool that we use in agile approaches. And it's again one of the agile tools that we call low tech, high touch. So basically you can create a Kanban board using a whiteboard, right? And some pens and some sticky notes, right? But what is important about the Kanban board is that it visualizes, it gives you a visualization of the work that we are doing, right? So if we assume that these are the stages that we are working with, so here I have the to-do tasks. So here are the tasks that we need to do, that the product owner hands to us. And then, for instance, we will go with this sequence. We have here the design. So every user story will start by design, and then when finish designing, we will start developing this user story, and then we will test this user story, and then it's considered done. Okay, so let's assume that the team will work in this sequence. Okay, so we start again by meeting with the product owner, right, and discussing what user stories the product owner wants us to create. So the product owner, at the end, we would agree with the product owner to create the following, or to do the following user stories. I'm going to give them different colors just to differentiate between them. Okay, now some user stories might be related to functionality, some user stories might be related to performance, some user stories might be related to security, whatever. Okay, so we have here the to-do list, and the team will start working on the list by what? Again, how does the team start? They take what? They take the items on the top of the list, right? Because they are the highest priority items. So they will start with this item, right? And this item, okay? And so on. Now the question is, the first question is, can the team, or should the team, start with all the items? What do you think together? Or should the team, for instance, take only one item to start with? Of course, it's not advisable that the team starts with all the items together, right? Because the team will be stuck here. right? And of course, we cannot, or it's not advisable as well to start with only one task, because this is a waste of resources, right? I have a team that can start working on 2 or 3, for instance, right? Okay. So let us set some rules, and those are the rules that I need to understand very well on how to use the Kanban board. The first rule is we need to set a limit for work on all the stages. So basically, the team working on the design phase, for instance, their capability, their maximum capability is 3. Okay, so they cannot and they are not allowed to work on more than 3 items. Okay, so we'll set a limit for them. Okay, guys, on the design, you cannot work on more than 3 items. While the team in the development, for instance, cannot work on more than 2 items. Test, for instance, can work on 4, no problem. They can test 4 items. Done, of course, is done, okay? So the first rule is, I need you to remark this tool very clearly. The first rule is that WIP, which stands for work in progress, is waste, is considered waste. Any work that you have started and haven't finished yet is considered waste. So basically, the value has not been achieved until, for instance, this item reaches done. So basically, if you have, for instance, here the following representation of what's taken place, where is the value? The value is only in one task that has been done, while all the other tasks are still in progress and they're considered waste because they haven't been completed yet. I need to complete them in order to create value. Let me add here also again few tasks with different colors. So if you get a question now in the exam, if they give you this Kanban board in the exam and they ask you, what should you be doing next step? What is your next step? To move which item from which column to which column? What's your answer now? What should your answer be? The next step should be, yes, to take this item from test to done, right? But for instance, if you take this from here to here, you still haven't changed anything. It's a waste, right? Or if you take this from here to here, this is again waste, right? I need to finish something in order to achieve some value. So my focus now would be to finish one of those. Okay, does that make sense so far? Okay, so this is the rule number 1. Since WIP or work in progress is waste, we need to limit it. So limit WIP. limit WIP. So basically, again, we set some rules here, some limits, and when the team reaches their limit, they cannot take more. So basically, for instance, if the design team has a limit of 2, they cannot accept now any new tasks from the customer. If the customer now asks them to start designing on something, no, sorry, we cannot, because we reached the limit, right? If this is the limit, if the limit here is 1, then the development team will not accept any new task until they finish this. So when they finish this, they will take it here, and then they will take, if something here is finished in the design, okay, if it's here finished in the design, then they can start working on it on the development. Okay, does that make sense? So now this is the other important rule, which is Kanban is a pull, not push system. You cannot push tasks on people, on the team. You cannot push. No. What will happen is that the team will pull again. Okay. So if you finish the design, then you put them here. Now, if the development team is busy, again, they are developing one item and the capacity or the limit is one item. You cannot ask them to do development for the design because you finished the design. No, when you finish the design of this item, you just finish it and keep it aside, and you pull. The design team now will pull from the to-do list. Now, when the development team finishes this item, they will put it here and they will pull this item to work with, right? And when the testing, let's assume they have also the limit of 2. When the testing team finish testing one of the items, so it's done, then they can pull the item that has been finished here in the development and they can start testing it. Does that make sense to you? Okay. Any question? So there are 2 main rules again in Kanban board. First, you need to set limits for the work in progress. On each stage, there is a limit that the team cannot accept beyond. Okay. And the other rule is we don't push tasks, we pull tasks. Okay. So when item is finished and is ready to start with, when the team finishes what they have, they can start working with the next. Okay. You might have noticed, by the way, these systems in restaurants. They use the Kanban board or this system of working, the same system of working when they take the orders, how they put the orders, how they classify the orders, and the team that works on the different orders. Okay. So basically here, again, we don't have dates, we don't have schedule. The objective here is to create a system, which is the Kanban, of course, system, that streamlines the process and makes it as quick as possible. Okay. Now, one important thing about agile teams that they have similar skills. We call them generalizing specialists. We will explain that more after a little bit when we talk about the resources. Agile team members are generalizing specialists, meaning they have similar skills. So Ahmed, for instance, can work in design and can work in development and can work in testing. Maybe his core competency is development, but still, if you ask them to help in the design or in the testing, they can. Okay, which gives me also some ability to improve even the throughput of the tasks. So let's assume, for instance, that we have this scenario. If you get this question in the exam, and they ask you to identify where the bottleneck is and how I can improve the performance of the system. How can I reallocate my team or reallocate my resources to make the system perform faster? What do you think? The first question, where do you think the bottleneck is? Where do we have slow? What is making this system slow? Yes, excellent, Majd. Is it the design or the development? No, the development is the bottleneck, right? And because it's a bottleneck, we have now what? We have here probably stacking of tasks waiting to be pulled. But since we have a bottleneck here, and since the team here cannot accept more than one task, this is slowing the system down. Is that correct? So the development team cannot work on more than one and will have to wait until we finish this task so they can pull the other task, right? So the bottleneck is in the development. So basically, when you see a large number of tasks on one of the columns, when you see stacking of tasks here, that means the next column has a problem. The issue is in the next column, right? So you need to improve the performance here. How do I improve the performance here? I might ask someone or some of the team working in the design to come and help the people in the development so they can what? So they can start working on 2. So I increase their limits, right? And they can start working on 2, right? And this is possible again, because again, I told you the team have similar skills. The team has similar skills and they are generalizing specialists. So whenever, and this is the beauty again of Kanban, it helps you, it visualizes what's happening for you. By having a look at what's going on, you can identify quickly where the problem is, right? Where I can identify the bottleneck and how to solve this bottleneck. Is that correct? Okay. Now, of course, this is might probably new information for you, and of course, you need maybe some time or review to compile it pretty well. So again, try to all the time try to review the recording and try to make sure that you have understood it well. Okay. So again, basically, the Kanban is a visualization of the work that is being done. We will set limits for the work in progress. The Kanban is a pull, not a push system. The team is generalizing specialists. They have similar tasks. Okay.
Now, you might have used similar tools like Trello, Asana, Jira. They are also task boards, okay? But they don't necessarily follow the Kanban rules, okay? Because if you use Trello or Jira, you can use whatever you want. You can move this as you want. There is no rules. But if you want to apply the Kanban rules, you should apply the rules that we have mentioned. You should set limits on every stage for the work in process. You should always focus on done. And you should use the system as a pull system, not a push system. Okay? Does that make sense? Hopefully. Okay, so let's get back. So we call this kind or this way of scheduling, we call it on-demand scheduling. Okay, it's on demand because I'm trying to move items as soon as possible and try to get those items from to do to done as quick as possible, right? So we call this on-demand scheduling. Okay. And team members pull work again from the queue when available. And this, of course, is based on the Kanban and lean methodologies. We will also explain a little bit about the lean methodology, which is also an agile methodology. And we try to level out work for all team members. So every team member is doing almost the same amount of work. So for instance, again, if I find that this team is relaxed and they are stacking items, so I'll take members from this team and will assign them to other team where they can be more efficient, okay? Now you need to notice something about the on-demand scheduling and about the iterative scheduling that we mentioned just before, that this kind of scheduling that we usually use in Agile does not work well if you have dependencies between those items. For instance, this user story depends on this user story, right? So although it has probably this user story has more priority, probably, but is dependent on a user story with less priority. So this will create some confusion, okay? So they don't work well if you have complex relationships between the tasks or between the user stories.